So recently I was having a conversation with Romani, and we were having that conversation about managing stress and how much not everyone has the capacity to deal with certain stresses or certain challenges that they face in life. And he made reference to me that not everyone is able to do a full-time job plus full-time school plus have other activities in their life. Usually I take that as like I did not see that as anything exceptional because it becomes my norm. But when he highlighted that, it gets me thinking that maybe things that we do take for granted, we shouldn't, or maybe we should take the time out to try to understand other people. What do you guys think?
Well, I think it's all about perspective. Like whatever that person is perceiving as hardship or impossible or possible is completely dependent on how they see the world, right? And like their experiences, their childhood experiences, their current experiences, what's happening inside of them, what's happening inside of their home. So it's completely situational, in my opinion. So maybe there is something within your life that prepared you to be able to handle certain things that wasn't necessarily present in another person's life.
So what do you think, Romani?
I agree with what she said.
You agree with what she said. So what I was thinking though, to me, because that's how I perceive it, that we all are conditional beings, and I know even though our external or things that happen in our life can actually steer us, if we as people, or if there is put out conscious effort to reverse the pattern or reverse things that's happened that actually determine our behavior or do things that will actually help us consciously to manage these situations or stresses that we face.
So you mean like even if something happens in our life, like just being able to unlearn,
like reverse it, replace the pattern,
and redirect.
Yeah.
Well, that's
so
interesting. I think it's idealistic. I think that I would like to believe that we all have the power to do that, but not everyone's tapped into that state of consciousness where they're able to override trauma or override things so easily, or even be conscious of trauma or the effects of trauma in order to start their journey of healing. Not everyone is tapped into that state of consciousness, but I'd like to believe that everyone has the power to.
You were saying something earlier on.
I was saying that's not realistic because that's all somebody knows is what they've been through. And I don't know, you have to find, somebody has to give you that knowledge, you have to get that knowledge from somewhere in order to even have that knowledge in the first place. So some people don't even know. And
that it exists.
Yes.
So that means that which goes back to if we're not learning it at home, or we can learn from our school system, if it is taught to us at some point. So the home, if the homes are not equipped to deal with this, what do we do? How can we? What about peers? Talking to peers. What do you think about that? What are other solutions outside
They're
of
in
the
the
home?
same position as you are. They don't have much more knowledge than you do. Because if they're the same age, then that's what's expected. So you got to talk to somebody that actually has experience with whatever you're dealing with. And if you're talking to your peers, there's a likelihood that you're getting wrong advice. Or, I don't know.
I think that it's possible to get it from peers who are exposed to that kind of knowledge and home training. Because I think I've seen where you have older people who aren't necessarily as wise, and then some young people who are super into self-empowerment, self-love, and those kind of things. So age doesn't necessarily always determine your ability to like tap into that power, but so yeah, it would definitely help if you know, more people who were exposed to that knowledge were passing on what they
To
learned.
others.
Yeah.
So, because maybe one of the pair may learn it from home, because not all the homes are not equipped. Of course, some homes are equipped, but the homes that are equipped would have to be like the resource for the ones that aren't. Is that?
And
Yeah.
the ones that have both parents, both parents that are in a healthy relationship, so they can focus on other things like what you're talking about, like passing down this type of information. So if you're automatically in an unhealthy household, then that could be a big reason as to why.
Okay. And what about? Another thing I'm thinking about is mentorship. You know, ensuring that we people volunteer, people with certain skills and knowledge volunteer to be mentors and do, you know, go out and offer their service more. You know.
Yeah. Well, that's being done now.
It's been done now.
It's being done now, but it's like for how long? And then when the mentor does go away, what happens to the person, the mentee?
Do they follow through though? How does it work? Do they follow through? Do they have regular sessions, and do they follow up on the improvement? Is it just one off?
Yeah, that's important to consider when thinking about mentors, because just having people come in your life during a certain point in time and then leave doesn't secure a fix. There's no quick fix. This is a journey.
Yeah.
This is something that, in my opinion, is lifelong.
Right.
So you have to continue. If you're not inclined to be that way, you have to have that person who could be there for you when you slip up, or when life tries to tug you in a different direction. Or
Right.
you just to have at least one person who has your back in that way,
To provide the support.
to provide that support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you guys get mentorship at school? Do they offer that at school, at your school? But I know you're graduating from Danielle, but did you?
I was the mentor.
Oh, you were the mentor.
That's why I'm saying like I was in those children's lives for like a period of time.
Oh.
But I won't be there for a lifetime. I'm not in their lives right now.
Right.
So I can't say maybe what I've said to them or the time I've spent with them has some kind of change in the way they think. But I'm more interested in, because I know for me, like having my mom who has my back through my whole life has been super helpful. When I have to deal with anything stressful or when life has me down, like having her has as my rock has been the most healing thing. And she has taught me to become an independent self-healer in a way. It's kind of like I retreat if I'm going through anything hard, I retreat to myself.
Right. Okay.
To sit in. I was saying to you earlier, before we started this interview, that suffering is a part of life.
Right.
I think pain is a part of life, and I think that it can lead to something beautiful. I think that it can propel us to achieve things that we've never even conceived until that moment. But when we're going through the pain, you don't see that. But when you get out of it and you realize where you are and what you feel hungry to do, then you're like, wow, if that thing didn't happen to me, or if life wasn't set up this way, or it seems unfair, then I wouldn't have this hunger and passion for this thing.
Right.
Yeah. So that kind of mentality where it's like, suffering is going to happen. It's a natural part of life, and it's what you can do with it that matters. So that has helped me through a lot, because when I'm going through it, I really, really do try to see that side of it.
Yes, you try to look at the brighter side.
Yeah, and they're like, realistically, you can't just be going through something in the midst of it and be like, oh, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like that does not happen. But and sometimes it's important to have someone like my mom, I was saying before, it to be like it will pass. Just a reminder, it's not gonna last forever. But when you're in that darkness, or when you're feeling like you need some type of proof that you can move on from this, it helps to have in the back of your mind that it will get better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a take on that, Romani? Okay. But what I think, though, and what I've found is that I agree with you. Challenge our stress is a part of life, because even if you look at the whole flow, you know, where you reach your maximum capacity of being great or good, or being in a mode where you're totally in sync with yourself and the environment, most times it comes with a challenge. And when it comes with a challenge, we are forced, at that point, we go through the stress and the pressure because we don't have the skill at that time to really match the challenge we're facing. So what it does, when we have this challenge, we see it as a stress and we see it as pressure. But when we prepare ourselves and you keep motivated, and when your mom motivates you that you can do it, you can do it, you put in the work. You put in the work that is required to get in the flow, to or develop the skill that is required to match up with the challenge that you face. And then when it's match up, you go through a flow of, you know, in sync and enjoying whatever it is. And then, but I think that's what life is. So you constantly will have challenges, and then you'll have this, develop the skill to match the challenges, and it's a cycle. It's constant, and that's how we evolve. And life is about evolving and growing and, you know, changes.
I hear what you're saying. I think we're talking about two different things, though.
You think
like
so?
I was thinking, you're thinking of challenges like experiences that are kind of like on your path to success.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking of like natural things that happen, like the death of a loved one,
Okay.
like grief, dealing with the grief, like those kind of things will really set you back when you're not ready for it. And so it just might seem like it will last forever and it's helpful. It doesn't go away. Like the effects of something traumatic like that doesn't go away, but it can lead to something beautiful. Like being open to like the fact that natural suffering can still lead to something beautiful,
Right.
has helped me get through life in a much more, I guess, grateful way.
Be grateful.
Thankful
Okay.
way. Yeah.
But the death of a family, that means at that point you're still faced with a challenge. The challenge of having to deal with the death of someone.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? You don't have the capacity. You have
Depends
the
on the
capacity. You haven't built the character.
Let's say a close family member.
Yeah, so you haven't built the character strength to really deal with this. So you're forced to build character within that moment.
You're forced to, well, from my personal experience, I was forced to look at the world differently. I was 15, so it put me in a position where I wasn't able to relate to the smaller things anymore as much as the rest of my friends who weren't necessarily in a position like that. So I kind of like took on this life is greater type of narrative, like life is greater than this, life is greater, and that doesn't do well with like relating to other kids your age, you know, because if people are talking about certain things, you get annoyed because you're like, that doesn't matter, you know, so you can lose your life tomorrow. Like those kind of things were just like on my mind constantly at 15, or you know, so that's how I think. And like I would say the beauty in that, like now adapting that kind of mentality from back then, is that I pray for wisdom and I look towards wisdom in carrying me through, and that's like something that didn't really occur to me until I was forced to
deal with it.
Yeah,
it's a part of your life,
to live with the fact that
it.
At the end of the day, life is something that's the most precious thing that we have, but the most fragile. So in a moment it could be wiped away like that. So there are certain things that I probably wouldn't do, wouldn't want to do, and I still do it because I'm like, listen, life is short. And not in the like frivolous like live fast die young short, but life is too short. We're given this life to live it. And if there's something that you're itching to do maybe, or something you want to explore, and you're feeling some kind of self-doubt, or feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough for this, or like moments like that come up, then I think back to that space I was in when I saw someone I love lose their life at a very young age. And they weren't able, and I know if they were alive right now, they'd be pushing and kicking and, you know, chasing their passions, but they weren't given that chance,
the opportunity to.
Yeah, and it also made me realize that like bad things happen to good people too.
Yeah.
So just because someone is the friendliest or the most compassionate doesn't mean that they're guaranteed safety from violence or safety from pain and hurt or injury. So you really can't predict. We're not in complete control of what we're doing or the life around us. So
Our
just
destiny.
being in the moment is so important.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the beauty that I got from that challenge, I guess.
Yeah. So challenges is there to shape us, make us, help us to embrace and to live with, know how to deal with it or learn how to deal with it as we move along. Very interesting conversation. Thank you guys.